Hello! In this video I'm going to show you an example of an animated background I've made that runs in loop in the same slide such as this one, and that you can easily reproduce. For e-learning designers or companies that don't have either an animation software or skills in CSS3 or a budget for developing animations, it can be a solution to make animations that run in loop in background while the content is being displayed. To introduce shortly this animation, it stays on the same slide as you can see. We have the illusion that all move forward, and I can display some contents below by using buttons without changing the slide or slowing down or stopping the animation. How to design this type of animation running in loop within the same slide? I'm going to show you this. Let's begin by looking at how my Captivate example is set up. All the animation and the content are on this slide. I have just created two other slides in order to check that my loop animation was running correctly. The first slide checks that at the end of my animation that Captivate doesn't go back to the previous slide or continue to slide free the next slide. Now let's see the design of my animated slide. In the bottom part, I have placed buttons and content that I've created with the State View feature. And above, all the animation objects are located. Let's look at them. The sky and the sea are static backgrounds. They don't move. The plane and the clouds are animated pictures made from the effect panel with simple effects, and their animations don't require any difficulty. Now remains the picture in foreground. This is a picture of these mountains that give illusion that all move forward once animated. And when we want to create a loop animation, the bigger difficulty is the design and setup of this picture. Why? Firstly, because the end and the beginning of this picture must be consistent and relatively the same from a visual point of view. Both must match. Otherwise, you will get visual skips and the loop animation won't work. The second difficulty is the size of this picture. What size can we define? If we use a too small picture or a size with a size that don't respect visual cycles as we do in cartoons, it also won't work. A third difficulty when this picture is created correctly will be its location in the slide as well as its animation. If we don't observe accurate rules as well as the right space we need between the beginning and the end of the motion path when we set up the animation, this picture will move forward badly and the loop animation won't work correctly. At last, fourthly, so that this animated picture plays endless, we'll need to define a script enabling this picture to run in loop. Which script and which variable can we use in order to create it? In this demonstration, I'm going to focus on those points in order you are able to create your own animated background running in loop within a slide. First, what will be the size of this picture? And once evaluated, how to design this picture with visual cycles as we do in cartoons. Let's begin by trying to define a size. In order to figure out the difficulties that we can run into, I'm going to create a blank slide and make two tests. In the first one, I'm going to insert a picture from the library that has a size of 1280 pixels and that fills exactly the width of the slide. Now, is it the right size for preparing a loop animation? Let's apply an effect to this picture in order to check. In the Effects panel, I select Entrance Then I put the mouse over the fly in from right effect, then fly in from left, and we can see in both animations that the picture never fills all the width of the slide. The Captivate background appears on the right or on the left according to the effect as soon as the animation begins. For a simple animation it would be perfect, but our objective being to create a loop animation, we can conclude at this step that this picture size won't work with what we want to make. So I remove this picture and going to make a second test with a new picture. This time it's bigger than the Captivate project and I adjust it in the middle in order to have a margin on the right and the left telling me that being still visible outside the slide on both sides, this solution may be logically better. Let's try. I'm going to apply an effect. Fly in from right as previously, but this time, in order to show you more accurately the result, I'm going to launch the timeline. As you can see, if I move the playhead slowly, we still see the slide background on the left at the beginning, and our picture doesn't fill all the width of the slide in spite of its longer size. Is it still a wrong solution? No, because if we use another setting we can improve this. Let's try by moving the motion path on the left. Now, if I play with the timeline again, we can see that by moving the motion path the result is better. The picture is fully on the left when the animation begins, and on the right side, any blank appears at the end of the animation. So it's very effective and we can estimate at this step that with a picture size wider than the Captivate project as well as moving its motion path, that it can be a solution. But is it really? Yes and no. I would say it's the beginning of the solution, but it's not enough. In order that all works perfectly, our picture must be made with visual cycles as we do in cartoon, and it's not the case for this one. So before going further, as that we have understood that we need a picture size wider than the Captivate project, we need to know now how to create a picture with visual cycles. I'm going to show you this from my animation and the mountains picture I've made. Let's look at how I have designed it from scratch. To do so, I open Photoshop. To create the mountains picture I use for my loop animation, I have first created this picture 640 pixels wide by 114 pixels high. This picture is my basic visual cycle. It has only one visual cycle. The most important when creating this picture is to design left and right sides in order they match together. A little bit like a Lego. The end of the picture must match with the beginning and vice versa. They must be the continuation of the other. The visual appearance, colors, pixels, and lines in the scenery must be the same. If I use a zoom and add a guide, we can see that the green ground on the right has the same color, appearance, height than we have on the left. Both sides are the continuation and complement of the other. On the opposite, if I put a rock here on the right side, like that, This couldn't work because the end of the picture would be too different than the left side from a visual point of view. Both sides in this case doesn't match. The rock is a visual break compared to the left side, and we would have a visual skip at the end of each loop in our Captivate animation as a result. So this example wouldn't work because of a visual break on the right side. Once you have taken into account those points and created your basic visual cycle correctly like this, the second step will be to create a new file longer than you Captivate a project in which you will copy and paste this picture many times. Let's create this new picture. In my example, I created a file 1920 pixels wide by 114 pixels high like this. Why 1920 pixels wide? Because the objective was to copy and paste my original picture 3 times, and 3 times 640 pixels equals 1920 pixels. Let's reproduce this. I copy the original picture, and paste it 3 times in the new file, like that. By doing so, we can check that the end matches well with the beginning of the other copy, and improving if needed. Of course, if we make changes here, we have to reproduce them within the other copies as well as in our basic visual cycle so that we have exactly the same picture everywhere. Everything being okay, I'm going to paste my picture a new time on the right of this one. And check again that end and beginning match well. Once all is done, and that you have your 3 copies perfectly gathered without visual break between 2 pictures, merge visible layers, and save the picture to the PNG format with a transparent background. That's all to create a background picture intended to be animated in loop with Captivate as we do in cartoons. First, create a scenery that will be your basic visual cycle, and by considering that its end must match with its beginning from a visual point of view. Then create a second file longer than your Captivate project, in which you will copy your scenery several times. Notice that there is no defined size for this final picture. The size will depend on the size of your Captivate project, as well as the number of times you will need to copy your basic visual cycle into this file. In my example, this file is 1920 pixels wide, but if I had created a basic file 400 pixels wide, my final picture would have been 1600 or 2000 pixels wide, because I would have had to copy this basic picture 4 or 5 times. Now let's go back to Captivate. Now we have defined a size for our picture and seen how to design it with visual cycles. We are going to use the same created picture with the objective to place it and animate it correctly within a slide. We have just seen before a first approach to do that, but now we have the right picture. I'm going to show you a more effective process to achieve this. Actually, there are several ways to proceed, but I think the one I'm going to show you is easier to understand. So let's go. I begin by removing the picture I used for the previous test and going to insert the picture I used for my animation on slide 2. That's the same we have just created in Photoshop. I also create a blue background with a smart shape in order to have a background beyond my mountains that will represent the sky. Then I display these two objects for the rest of the slide. Now let's place correctly the mountains picture intended to be animated in loop. You've seen in Photoshop that my basic visual cycle had a size of 640 pixels, so what I'm going to do is to enter in the Properties panel, Options, minus 640 for the X value. And once entered, you can see on the left side that a full basic visual cycle is out of the slide, and that on the right, the picture is just on the edge of the slide. This is exactly what we want at this step. Now we have correctly placed this picture with our setting, we are going to animate it. To do so, I'm going to apply the Fly in from right effect as previously. Once done, notice two important points. The first one is that the end of the motion path is located automatically in the middle of the picture with an X value of 320. And the second point is that the beginning of the motion path, represented by the green arrow, has an X value of 920. Those 2 points are important because to animate this picture correctly in loop, we must apply the following rule. The difference between end and beginning of the motion path must be equal to the size of the basic visual cycle. That means 640 in our case. Now what we currently have is a difference of only 600 pixels. So what we have to do in order to apply the rule is to adjust the X value of the beginning of the motion path to 960 rather than 920 in order to get a difference of 640 between end and beginning of the motion path. To do so accurately, I'm going to create two vertical guides. I'm going to place the first one at the same place at the end of the motion path. I enter here 320. Then I'm going to place the second guide 640 pixels further than the first one. That means 960. Now we have a real difference of 640 pixels between the two guides. What I just have to do is to adjust the middle of the green arrow over the second guide. Once done, and that the beginning of the motion path is placed at 960 pixels, we have now a space of 640 pixels between end and beginning of the motion path as we wanted. So we can check that our animation works well at this step. I'm going to add a few seconds in the timeline before. I also check that the animation is displayed for the rest of slide, and since it's not the case, I adjust it. Now everything being okay, I can launch a preview from this slide in order to see if my animation works well at this step. The animation runs correctly, the mountains picture fills all the width of the slide as we want, there is any blank on the left side or on the right side, and the slide background doesn't appear anywhere. It's perfect, we can see that our animation runs correctly within one cycle, but it doesn't work in loop yet. This is what we are going to do now. To create a loop for our animation, we need to create a script. To show you this, I'm going to use my Slider 2 where the script is already created and where the settings are exactly the same we have just done for the picture, with a space of 640 pixels between end and beginning of the motion path and an X value of minus 640 for its position. In regard to the script enabling this picture to run in loop, this one is put on the exit of the slide. I've created it with the following logic. When the playhead arrives at the end of the timeline, I send it back at the beginning of the slide so that the animation plays again. That means that it can be endless. But to create such a script within a project that contains several slides, we need to know at which frame number the relevant slide begins in order to send back the playhead on the right frame. I'm going to show you the created script in few seconds, but it's important to know before how we can identify a frame number within a slide or a project. To do so, we use the system variable cp_info_current_frame. It returns the current frame number of the timeline. Now we have this information, let's see how I have used this variable in order to identify at which frame number my animation slide was beginning. For doing so, I've created on the first slide a text caption where I have inserted my cp_info_current_frame variable and I've displayed it for the rest of project. Notice also that my timeline has a duration of 1 second and that the button stops just at the end of the slide. Now let's see what this variable displays by launching the project. I adjust the window. And you can see that the variable displays 29 currently. As the playhead of the timeline stops just at the end of the slide, this means that this first slide has 29 frames. In reality it has 30 frames, but the first frame being equal to 0, this is why 29 is displayed here. Now if I launch the animation by clicking on the button, you can see that my variable runs and that figures are changing according to where we are. So it's pretty easy to identify at which frame number we are at a given time by stopping the animation and by dragging the button left or right. Notice that the variable displays figures 8 by 8 and not one after the other. I don't know if it's a Captivate default, but we can find a right frame number in spite of that by using, for example, a button as I did it on the previous slide, that we stop at the place we want in order to identify at which frame we are. Here, if this line ends at frame 29, we can logically estimate that my second slide begins at frame 30. By knowing that now, it's easy to report this figure in the script enabling to my animation slide to run in loop. Let's look at now the script. I select my animation slide, Properties, and click on my script folder. The created script is a very simple script. It's not a conditional action script, but a standard action script. In regard to the created action, this one is just an expression to which I have assigned a system variable cp command go to end frame and resume that enables Captivate to go to a frame number directly and to resume. Then, as we must mention to this variable at which frame number to go or to go back, we write this frame number just after, followed by -0 in order to stay on the frame number entered. That means here that I request to Captivate to go back on frame 32. You're going to tell me, hey, we have just seen before that your animation slide was beginning at frame 30. So why enter here 32 instead of 30? Actually, it's because I have noticed that according to the browser, device and network I used, that little visual skips appear at the beginning of each loop by entering 30. This is why after making several attempts, I have adjusted this number to 32 to avoid those little visual skips. On your side, I think that the problem can be the same. So if you see little visual skips at the beginning of each loop in your animation, don't hesitate to make tests and to adjust your frame number to +1 or 2 if needed. I will finish by telling you that I could have used another script to make my loop animation. There are other possibilities, but this one seemed to be more effective than other. Now we have seen how this script was, let's see the final result in a browser. I've already shown you this animation in a Captivate window, but let's see it now in a browser in order to check it works as well. We can see that the animation runs correctly. At the end of the slide, the playhead goes back to the beginning and runs in loop correctly. The animation plays endless and remains on slide 2 only. We can also check that with the variable. With this animation, we can add interactions, buttons, and what we want below or around according to the objective. I have put buttons here, but there are many other possibilities. For example, I could have added a character in foreground front of the animation. If I do that quickly to show you something else, I'm going to insert a character. Place it on the right. Display it for the rest of slide. And launch a preview. As you can see, it's another possibility, but there are also many other possibilities according to the creativity of each one. This demonstration is now completed. I have showed you how it was possible to make a loop animation without using an animation software or HTML5 and CSS. I hope you have learned something and hope to see you in the next video.